Every frame of this sequence was flown by code, a simulated ship in a storm of deepfake videos, no hand-keyed camera. And every rendered frame comes back byte identical, every single run, same checksums, twice. That rule nearly killed us. Then it turned out to be a superpower. This is how we got there.
Control the narrative.
David used the same dumb trick. Deepfakes.
I can't trust mandatory.
This isn't a game, even though it looks like one. It's previs for a film with a locked edit. Every deepfake panel has to be on screen at the exact frame the editor cut it to. So when the director says, put things roughly where they are in editorial, that sentence has to become math. The requirement that motion match editorial meant we were running an iterative two-tier solve. Every director note becomes one constraint: a subject, a frame, a target pixel, a tolerance, and a weight. Locked notes go in tier 1, hard feasibility gates the solve must satisfy before anything else counts. Everything softer is tier 2, a weighted least squares objective it's allowed to trade, note against note. This is what that looks like. The gold line is the flight path. The rings are anchors, places editorial says something must be. And this falling number is the residual, the distance in pixels between where a subject is and where the edit wants it, dropping stage by stage until it sits inside tolerance. Here's the acid test. There's a kid in one of the panels at frame 750 that the director explicitly flagged. When we gave the ship bigger dodges that commit and hold, the whole world slid with them, and this kid drifted 386 pixels off his editorial mark. That's below the bottom of the frame. Gone. The blanket fix, slide everything back to compensate every frame, gets him to 1/10 of a pixel, and cancels the feel of the dodge everywhere in the level. The solve found the middle path. It moved exactly one object out of 1,512. This kid by 24 units in world space. And he lands 6.4 pixels from his mark. Everything else, value identical. But a solve can only place things. It can't tell you how a ship should move. For that, we refused to hand animate game feel. So we instrumented a classic rail shooter and logged real play telemetry. Every frame, stick input, position, velocity, bank angle, camera. About 2,600 frames of real human play. The stick is active 46% of the time, about 1.9 commits a second. Median hold 133 milliseconds. Recomputed straight from the capture. Then we measured the game itself, its rail speed and enemy speeds as ratios of the players, and built our ship's motion from those numbers. The hit shake is our own model, a spring damper tuned to the response we measured, an 11.7 Hz shake, sitting right at the edge of what 24 frames a second can represent. So we simulate it at 60 Hz and sample down, instead of evaluating it raw and letting it alias. There's a house rule written into the repo. Procedural noise is banned for camera shake. This is why. Run a spectral analysis on a wiggle-style shake and on our spring damper shake, driven by real impacts. The procedural track piles 93% of its variance into just 3 spectral lines. A 4-parameter harmonic fits it at 99.5%. That's not a camera, that's a metronome. The impact-driven track spreads across the spectrum, no dominant line, not because physics is broadband, but because it's excited by irregular real impacts instead of a free-running oscillator. Oscillators repeat, hits don't. Now the failure act, because the first playable was bad in a very specific way. The ship dodged 7 times across the whole level on a fixed cadence, while 464 threats flew past completely uncoupled. At the peak of the storm, 232 near misses per 100 frames, and the ship reacted to none of them. Look at the side-by-side. One of these ships is flying through a storm, the other one is being shot at. We called the broken version a screensaver with anxiety, and that's not a joke, it's a diagnosis. The data and the motion weren't coupled. so we regenerated the dodge schedule from the near-miss geometry. Every strong near-miss becomes a dodge, and every dodge sweeps its triggering threat off screen center. Then we did something uncomfortable. We hired 2 adversarial AI critics from 2 different model families, gave them about 1,200 frames with no shared context, and asked one question: is this a game? Both came back independently with the same sentence: the data is a game, the picture is motion graphics. One of them put it more brutally: a very handsome screensaver with a health bar. 2 models agreeing isn't proof of anything, but the exhibit they both landed on without talking to each other is hard to argue with. It was this hit at frame 719. Watch it at quarter speed. The telemetry says the ship gets flung, 792 pixels, but the frame renders it as a color wash. Nothing in the world moves. That one frame set the agenda for the rounds that followed it. And since we're being honest, a partial list of other things we got wrong. We built a creature rig whose roar recoiled anatomically backward. The head punched forward and down, and a biomechanics review pointed out that a roaring animal rears up first. Rebuilt. We spent a round on the engine's area lights before discovering that on our exact GPU stack, one area light renders exactly 0 light, while 13 of them work fine. Same code, same uniforms. Rejected. A light that depends on how many copies exist can't pass a determinism bar. And our own claims verification scorecard once came back certifying nothing. 0 of 6 visual claims, partly because the checkers couldn't measure what we'd claimed. We shipped the scorecard anyway. In this pipeline, honesty is cheaper than confidence.
Bots influencing the conversation.
It's a pathetic loser.
Pathetic loser. Seriously, what the hell's wrong with you?
The critics said the picture wasn't a game. So, the insight that reframed everything: stop keyframing the ship, build a rigid body ship, mass, drag, force-limited thrusters, and a pilot controller. Position feedback plus about 10 frames of look ahead, so it winds up into a maneuver instead of chasing it. And make it fly the level. This graph is the whole level. Gold is the camera that ships today, the authored one. Green is the physics ship. Cyan is a naive tracker for contrast. The physics pilot holds a 15-unit median error across 1,200 frames, saturating its thrusters on 1.3% of them. And here's the number we didn't expect. Jerk, the derivative of acceleration, the thing that reads as twitchiness. Measured the same way, same units, same time base, on both paths. The authored camera peaks at 216. The physics ship, 56. Mean jerk, 0.27 times the authored path. The hand-tuned motion carries the twitch. The simulation is the smooth one. Which forced the honest question: over the 18 hero beats the film actually depends on, does physics reproduce them? We graded everyone. 7 survive untouched, 9 are marginal, a small honest bobble, 2 genuinely die, and this is the clearest divergence. At frame 909, the authored camera does a bunny hop that demands a spike of acceleration, and the physics ship, thrusters force limited, just refuses. Authored on the left, physics on the right. Same frame, real game window. One more confession: our first draft of this study counted 8 dying beats. An adversarial pass caught that the deaths tracked our controller quality and the thruster cap we picked. Not physics being impossible, fixed the controller, swept the cap, and the honest count is 2. But none of these fixes matter if you can't trust 2 renders of the same thing to be the same thing. Underneath all of this sits the house religion: determinism. The master gate is brutal and simple. Render the level twice from 2 fresh sessions. Compare the bytes. If 1 bit differs, the round fails. That sounds insane for a piece full of grain, glitches, and datamosh. The trick is one rule: everything is seeded on the frame index. Never on time. Not the grain, not the stars, not the flicker. Nothing. This is the gate actually running. 2 fresh renders of the same frames, checksums side by side, every pair identical, and here's what the gate caught, live. The star twinkle pass. Run 1 versus run 2 of the same effect. About 18 decibels of difference between 2 renders that should have been the same picture. It failed the gate. The rule is absolute. An effect like that does not ship until it's reseeded on frame index, at which point it comes back byte identical too. And here's the payoff nobody expects when you adopt a rule that strict. Once the gate held, we could turn on a whole family of effects everyone calls unstable. Watch. That's real codec datamosh, actual corrupted motion vectors, chewing through the deepfake faces while the HUD stays crisp. Because deterministic doesn't mean static, and it doesn't mean random either, it means seeded. Every bit of that corruption is derived from the frame index. The same collapse, byte for byte, every render. If the director wants this exact frame again next month, it renders again, identically. Because the harness is deterministic and headless, iteration got strange in a good way. One overnight run fans out to a dozen full-level variants, different spines, different panic profiles, different worlds. Every tile in this grid is a full render of the same level, and any of them can be regenerated from its versioned inputs, byte for byte. The director picks a direction in the morning, and nothing gets thrown away, because everything can be remade. Exactly.
Xander has a history of making false police reports. What a privileged poser.
So, a machine-flown camera, grounded in real play telemetry and measured motion constants from a classic rail shooter, with a physics pilot demonstrated with waiting in the wings, through a storm of deep fakes, hitting a locked edit, byte identical every run. The question we opened with is answered. The one the critics left us with is not. The data is a game, and the picture still owes us some violence, making the picture take the hit. That's the next round. Here's where the sequence stands today.